Two games on this Saturday slate, the Oklahoma City Thunder and Milwaukee Bucks punched their ticket to the NBA Cup Championship. We're going to dive into just how they were able to pull this off.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Let's get it going on Locked On NBA Game Night. I'm Rylan, Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. That's Gavin, host of Locked On Knicks. We're here to cover the two-game slate in the NBA. A weird week of basketball with the NBA Cup shuffling the schedules around, but it was a fun afternoon that saw the Hawks and Bucks go toe-to-toe, the Rockets and Thunder. Gavin, the NBA Cup is here, and now we'll finish on Tuesday in the title game. A fun kind of marquee day where it felt like we were all watching the exact same games and kind of going through social media together. A vibe you really only get in those standalone playoff games, but to get it here the regular season was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was incredibly cool. And I've been an NBA Cup hater for most of its existence. I think there should be a tangible reward beyond money. But the flip side of that is you get playoff basketball in December, which is incredible. And that's what we got today.
And so let's start with the nightcap. Oklahoma City taking on Houston, a battle of two of the league's best defenses that bared out throughout this contest. The Thunder were able to pull out a win and go 2-1 in that season series to date. Gavin, what did you see in this win by OKC?
Yeah, I mean, just a really ugly start. And unless you love defense, then it was a beautiful start. A first quarter where Houston led by 2 at the end, despite shooting 6 for 24 as a team. They were up for the bulk of the first half, even though their starters, I tracked it, began this game a combined 5 for 27 from the field. And at that point, they were tied at 32 points apiece. The flip side of that was the Thunder star Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams started combined 2 for 13, and they were still in this game. And that kind of set the tone for the entire night, because once those two guys got going, particularly Shai in the second half, it was over. I mean, just the simplicity of the Thunder offense in kind of a beautiful way is what impressed me as much as their defense. They basically, it's just kind of like a flow chart, right? It's either Shai cooks his man, the other team overhelps, Shai hits an open shooter, or Isaiah Hartenstein in the dunker spot. If neither of those two things work, throw it to Jalen Williams, let him go to work. But really fun game. I mean, the Terror Twins for the Rockets showed out. It was just a little too much from the two Thunder stars down the stretch. And Isaiah Hartenstein filling in all the gaps shows you why it was so great for you, Rylan, that you guys stole him from my Knicks. 21 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 9 of 12 shooting in this one. And I guess the exclamation point was just Shai being a star. 32, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, 14 of 15 from the field. You're asking me, you're the expert on the Oklahoma City Thunder. What was so great about the win of the season for them?
I thought that they executed the game plan perfectly. This is going to be a battle of two outstanding defenses. You know that clean looks are going to be hard to come by, while both teams, when they did get clean looks, kind of fumbled away opportunities to score or missed open shots. But ultimately, for the Thunder in this specific matchup, you are no stranger to playing high-level defense and to limit other teams' offenses. Without Şengün getting going against Hartenstein, that really handcuffs Houston's offense. And so if this game gets into the mud, there's no better player to have at the head of the snake than SGA, who had his worst first quarter of the career, one of his worst outings really of his career since becoming a superstar, but the worst one of the season for sure. Starting the game 1 for 8 from the floor, that just was not good. But at the end, he finishes with 32 points, and he's able to get it going in that third quarter. And so I think that when you look at this team, the additions of Caruso and Hartenstein and the maturity from Shai and J-Dub, who've now gone through a postseason, in their roles, and for J-Dub, his first ever postseason, I think that the maturity really showed tonight in an environment that was different. The crowd was not great in either game, as you can expect, because none of these teams have a footprint in Vegas the way that the Lakers did a year ago to make that crowd kind of lively. And so it's a weird, sleepy game. You're starting out bad if you're SGA, but the calmness and the steadiness to go into the locker room and make the adjustments proved out why the Thunder for the second straight year are the number 1 seed out west. And I just think that overall, this is a style of fight that will produce really good games. Like, let's say you got Thunder Rockets in a playoff series. It would be must-watch television. But as they're currently constructed, I don't see how the Thunder would lose a series to Houston, because Houston lacks that scorer who can hit difficult shots and who can will them to wins at the end, the way that Shai was able to navigate this tough game.
Yeah, that was probably maybe it's where I should have started my single biggest takeaway from this one. It was not just Houston not having the number one shot creator on the floor. They didn't have the number one or number two shot creator on the floor. Like obviously Alperen Sengun is going to have better nights, has had many better nights. He's in the midst of a relatively tough offensive season, only shooting 47% from the floor so far this year. I would take Jalen Williams over anyone on the Rockets down the stretch. And it's kind of been the story this Houston season. Their defense has been so incredibly good. It largely hasn't mattered, but they kind of just say, all right, who's hot tonight? That's going to be the guy to lead us down the stretch. And Sengun, who's so often the fulcrum of their offense. I mean, we've seen it a bunch this year where Ime Udoka says, hey, like that's not really working. I'm going to take him out down the stretch of this game. He did that for a little bit tonight, put him back in for the final 3 minutes. But when he's not cooking, when Jalen Green isn't having a great night, when tonight, frankly, only Amen Thompson was the one guy who had an above average offensive game. Obviously, Oklahoma City had a lot to do with that, but that's kind of who Fred VanVleet has been his entire career, like a little feast or famine. That's who Jalen Green has been his entire young career, like feast or famine. And there isn't an obvious guy. I go through the top 8 in the West. Tell me if you disagree with this. Like, I struggle to see a series where the Rockets would have a best player, right? Shai on the Thunder, obviously better. Ja Morant on the Grizzlies, better than anyone on the Rockets. Luka Doncic on the Mavs, better than anyone on the Rockets. Steph Curry, better than anyone on the Rockets. Nikola Jokic, better than anyone.
Yep.
Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant. I could keep it going. Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, like just out of the top. Victor Wembanyama, you want to go top 11. De'Aaron Fox, top 12. Like that is the flaw with this Rockets team that is so real and so good and so young. And I don't want this to turn into crap on Houston because they are maybe my favorite team to watch in the NBA this year. But we're going to get to it a little later. Like whether or not they're a real contender, I just don't see it right now because they don't have that guy.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head of how the Rockets won their lone game against the Thunder so far this year. It was a 38-point night from Fred VanVleet where he's shooting shots from 6 feet behind the three-point line and they're going in, and like he just had a rare night for him. And so that's why I put it in the context of like in a playoff series. Yes, Jalen Green is the capable scorer that he can take over a game, and Fred VanVleet can get you another game. But can you patch together 4 games? And that's what's required to win a series in a star-driven league when everybody's shrinking their rotations down, except Mark, because Mark with the Thunder still does not shrink his rotations in the playoffs, but everyone else is shrinking their rotations down. You just don't have that top-end guy, which is why I just love the Jimmy Butler conversation with Houston. I'm not sure that they'd be wanting to do it. And I know from the opposite side of things of like last year, the Thunder took a massive step, similar to the Rockets step, and people were banging on the drum nationally to call for a trade. And we just knew locally that was not going to happen, that the moves were going to happen in the offseason. Perhaps it's the same way in Houston, because what I don't think Houston gets enough credit for is their improvements in this rebuild. Because last year they made the same jump the Thunder did in 2023 to get to the play-in. It's just that they didn't have the benefit that the Thunder had. Like, remember when the Thunder went to the play-in tournament, it was only because Dallas decided they did not want it. They wanted to protect their pick from your Knicks and, get into the draft lottery, which allowed the Thunder to go to the play-in tournament. Now, to Thunder's credit, they did have to go beat New Orleans and make a statement on the road in the 9-10 game, but they should have never been there, in a normal year where the Mavericks aren't kind of pulling strings for their pick. So Houston didn't get that benefit. They technically, again, missed the postseason last year because they did not get into the play-in tournament, but they were right there, man. They were really good last year and dealt with injuries. And now here they are, top of the West with flaws, the same way the Thunder had flaws at the top of the West last year. I just don't know what the next step will be for them. I feel really good about a lot of their young guys, but they certainly need a go-to scorer to emerge, because right now, I don't know who you give the ball to. I mean, I really don't.
Yeah, this guy isn't that, but a name I would throw out for both teams and I would overpay for if I was either team is Norm Powell, who's in the midst of a career season at 31 years old, 23 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, hyper efficient, like just ultra confident go-to scorer. Like, honestly, I think maybe like Jackson Gatling could come on and tell me this is totally disrespectful. I kind of think he would be Houston's go-to guy down the stretch. Yeah. I think Oklahoma City, as good as they are, like if they want to like be in a Celtics-esque tier, which is maybe the one team they're still chasing, I think they could use one more guy instead of Case and Wallace, who's super confident with the ball down the stretch of games. So that's my one note for both teams. I just want to shout out a couple little things that happened in this game, as it was like, despite the fact that it was weird and like kind of an anticlimactic finish, there were just a lot of like really fun things in this game down the stretch. I loved SGA just torturing Dillon Brooks, because Dillon Brooks like defended him really well at the start of this game, but SGA just kind of got a beat on him, and at one point literally just spun him around with a crossover. He looked like the Mr. Krabs meme, like where we're going, what's happening. Isaiah Hartenstein flipping the screen really late, which he's great at, helped in that. J-Dub and Tari Eason just having that back and forth in the second quarter where Tari Eason like swatted him and then went coast to coast for, I think was an and one layup, maybe not. And then J-Dub getting him back with like a nasty like outside spin move. That was great. I thought just like the strategic battle between the two teams of like when to play like bully ball, when to play small ball. Like it was Steven Adams initially like getting a few offensive rebounds, and the Thunder just started gang rebounding, like swarming, and Steven Adams would have the ball in his hands and they would bat it out over and over and over again. He's such a nice guy, but he's probably getting pissed. Kenrich Williams, 7 points in 11 minutes when Steven Adams was sort of daring him to shoot. He shot it. He made it. Adams tried the same thing on Lou Dort. Lou Dort got hot. That was a lot of fun. And then for the Rockets, like I wanted to shout out Thompson, because this was like, I think you and Jackson talked about this on the crossover episode, this Rockets, and you just said it, like the Rockets have never been in a playoff series. Obviously FVV has, and Dillon Brooks has. No one else on this team has. So I like Jalen Green down the stretch after Jeff Green gave him that pep talk, started attacking the rim, started creating some shots. Thompson was fearless. He was great this whole game. 19 points, 7 rebounds, 3 steals, 9 of 15 shooting. We know he's a 99th percentile athlete, but I just thought really confident, composed game. The defense held up. Dillon Brooks was huge initially, 4 for 8 from 3, missed his last 5. I think that really cost him down the stretch, but it just a cool game between two of the best young teams in basketball that are only going to get better.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this kind of rivalry grow, because you can tell, like after the last game in Houston, there was some chippiness. There was an Instagram Live that from Tari Eason and company, which of course rubbed the Thunder a certain way. And then in this game, there was chippiness down the stretch. So this is going to continue to fester and brew for two teams who are going to be in this spot many times in years to come, should everything go properly. But coming up, there was another semifinal game, the Hawks and the Bucks. The Bucks got the better end of the deal, but Trae Young had another big game on a big stage. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Mint Mobile, go check out Mint Mobile today, because they're awesome. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and the first month's bill, the price you thought you were going to pay, well, it magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. So say goodbye to the overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly fees, and unexpected overages. Check out Mint Mobile today. It's here to help you and rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text, including the nation's largest 5G network. So use your own plan with Mint Mobile and your own phone whenever you have your number, so you keep your contacts. It's a big hurdle to clear when switching providers. Go check them out. Ditch the overpriced wireless companies and choose Mint Mobile's deal to get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. So go there right now, where new customers can receive this offer and get 3 months premium wireless plan for $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/LockedInNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedInNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/wirelessNBA. $45 upfront required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on their first 3-month plan only. Speeds that get slower after you reach over 40 gigabytes. And on limited plans, additional taxes, fees, and restrictions to apply. See Mint Mobile for details. We're back on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast. I'm Rylan Stiles. Alongside me is Gavin Shaw, Locked On Thunder host for me, Locked On Knicks host for Gavin. Gavin, your Knicks saw the dice roll from Trae Young and that sent him to the semifinal in this game against the Milwaukee Bucks. And Trae Young shot 50% from the floor en route to 35 points and 10 assists, but it was not enough as they fall to Milwaukee 110-102. Let's go out to Atlanta, where you're going to see in Vegas, Brad Roland.
Hello, friends. My name is Brad Roland. I'm the host of the Locked On Hawks podcast, and the Atlanta Hawks went to New York on this Wednesday evening and pulled off an upset over the New York Knicks.
That was the Knicks recap. But so we'll pull the Roland short coming up. But nonetheless, Roland was able to be there and cover this game for Locked On Podcast Network. You can go check out that podcast for the losing side of things. But Gavin, let's start with the losers for the really first time in this show's history. Trae Young in a big game, man. Love him or hate him, and I know that you have some thoughts with your New York Knicks, but love him or hate him, Trae Young in big games, he rises to the occasion. He makes it fun. He makes it everything that NBA fans want.
Rylan, I think I've told you this before, but not our broader audience. I am both a Knicks fan and a University of Oklahoma fan, so I have extremely conflicted feelings on Trae Young. But I not too conflicted to say that he was a monster in this one. He was the reason Atlanta had a chance, arguably. Neck and neck with Giannis, I'll say, because Giannis was also spectacular for the best player on the floor. You said it, 35, 10, and 7 on just 18 shots, got to the foul line 17 times. A vintage performance for Trae Young, who was like one of the great foul merchants in the NBA, to the point that he made the league change the rules and just make it harder to do the rip through, to get to the line, and like a couple of other tricks of the trade that he had that guys like Emmanuel quickly had, Chris Paul had for years. And yet this game, he was just torturing Andre Jackson Jr. specifically. 3 fouls on him in the first half, like all kind of on BSC, just like foul hunting stuff. And you tip your cap, right, when you see a man back at the top of his game. And Trae needed it, because he did not shoot the ball well in the first half. Like, just made 1 field goal, made 9 free throws in the first half, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. I thought it was significant, though, that Milwaukee, very similar to the Knicks, but with more success, changed the way they were guarding Trae Young. He had 7 assists at the 6-minute mark in the second quarter, only got 3 assists the rest of the game. So while he got cooking, and he was great to start the third quarter of this game, just banging deep threes after they had some miscommunications, was consistently getting all the way to the rim. And that was an ongoing issue for Milwaukee in this one, where they'd score a basket and Trae or someone else would just push coast to coast. Milwaukee wouldn't be fully back. Atlanta plays at the 3rd fastest pace of any team in the NBA, and they were flashing it throughout this one. Another play in the third quarter where like Bogey set a screen at half court. Dame didn't step up. That's a great way to weaponize like whoever Dame's guarding. Just use your man to screen for him. And Trae hit another 30-footer. Crazy third quarter with 14 points. Was even putting in like solid effort defensively, like chasing AJ Green around a screen and blocking it down the stretch. I've not watched a million Hawks games, but I've never seen Trae Young do that in his college or NBA career. So that was cool. The reason it wasn't enough is because down the stretch of this game, Atlanta decided not to play Bogdanović and said they wanted Jalen Johnson on the floor because he's their second best player. They wanted DeAndre Hunter on the floor because he's been playing well and he's a shooter. But they also had Dyson Daniels on the floor to guard Damian Lillard. And because of that, 2 non-shooters, 2 guys, Milwaukee was like, sure, go for it. They just loaded up on Trae. He couldn't find anything down the stretch, and that's how the Bucks kind of won this game.
The Bucks did get the win. Now we go to Brad Roland, Locked On Hawks host, who will recap the Trae Young and Hawks performance.
Hello, friends. My name is Brad Roland. I'm the host of the Locked On Hawks podcast, and the Hawks saw their NBA Cup run come to an end on Saturday evening in Las Vegas. Their defense was actually quite good, as it has been this entire run. It has been an unsung development across the league. The Hawks have been playing great defense for the last couple of weeks, but on this night, that continued, but the offense fell short. Trae Young was brilliant at times, 35 points, 10 assists, but even late he couldn't make shots, and no one could make shots from the paint area, basically, anywhere inside the arc for most of the night. The Hawks shot 43% on 2s in the game. Some of that's credit to Brook Lopez and Giannis protecting the rim for Milwaukee, but Atlanta just couldn't get shots to go down, which led to some poor defensive stuff in transition, et cetera, and that was something to circle. So, step forward for the Hawks in general. They competed very well and played very well to reach this point, pulling off 3 upsets. A really encouraging time for Atlanta, but on this night, it wasn't quite good enough. We'll dive into all of why, how, et cetera, on the Locked On Hawks podcast.
Go check out the Locked On Hawks podcast, where you can get this breakdown of this game. But flipping over to Milwaukee's side of things, it was Giannis who turned in 32 points. I feel like, Gavin, every show we've done together so far, Giannis has had a big Saturday night.
We get the Bucks every single. I feel like I should be getting some of that Locked On Bucks money. I'm going to talk to Camilla and Justin when this is over. But yeah, Giannis was amazing. 32 points, 14 rebounds, 9 assists, 4 blocks. It didn't even feel like a particularly insane Giannis game. I guess maybe because we've been watching him have 50-point games on some of these Saturdays, but just another one where he was great. Atlanta, the last time they played, sent him to the line 26 times. And this time around, they kind of shrugged their shoulders again and said, all right, we're just going to hack you. 18 free throws. He makes 12 of them. Not great, but it was enough. He was really going for it. Had that play early in the fourth quarter where he just poked it away from Jalen Johnson, dove on the floor, covered it up. It felt like a little March Madness. All these games, particularly the second game, I meant to say that earlier, felt like a March Madness where you're in the football stadium and the depth perception's off and no one can shoot. Giannis had some mid-major going. Biggest shot of the game, the turnaround fadeaway to make it 103-96 with 3 minutes left after the Hawks had played great defense. He just broke their heart. And just the reps he's had in these big moments at this point in his career, the Hawks load up against him when it's 103-100, and he just waits it out. Lopez ducks in, hits him for a little layup over Trae Young. He just really managed this game. And then the defense from Giannis, we heard from Locked On Bucks earlier this year that he's back to an all defense level. I've seen a lot of that these last few weeks. 4 blocks, none bigger than the one on Clint Capella down the stretch. I said they were loading up on Trae Young, loading up on the pick and roll. Giannis was just sitting in the paint, waiting for it, rises up, swats a Capella dunk, gets some revenge after Capella was blocking him the whole night. Him and Brook Lopez, I thought we nailed it over at Locked On Hawks. Those two guys, just a spectacular game. When the Bucks have been one of the worst rim protecting teams in the NBA all year long, they stepped up when it mattered most.
They did, and I just think that the Bucks got enough. They got enough from Giannis, enough from Dame with his 5 triples, 25 points in total, and then Bobby Portis and AJ Green continue to help a bench unit that's in desperate need, honestly, of help. And so it was good to see those two continue their success, and now they get to play on a grand stage against Oklahoma City in the technically second ever NBA Cup championship. Although I did some investigating, the Lakers banner says in-season tournament champions. Every other banner will now say NBA Cup champions. So did technically the Lakers win the one and only in-season tournament, and nobody's won the NBA Cup yet?
Look, the Lakers have had issues for years claiming banners that don't belong to them. This one belongs to them, but it's just labeled differently. I just want to note that. The one thing we can conclude is Darvin Ham wins in-season tournaments, right? He's the common denominator, now the Bucks assistant coach. So might be some bad news for your Thunder.
Yeah, Darvin Ham is perfect in season tournaments and NBA Cups and everything else. So credit to him. That'll be a key stat to watch on Tuesday night. We're going to get you set for that Tuesday night game and play a game of buy or sell coming up. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at FanDuel, folks, you're listening to this on Sunday morning. You know what time it is. It's time to tackle that NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place a live bet on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, or you just have a feeling right now, pre-game, you can go bet on the spreads, player props, over-unders, and more at FanDuel.com to join today, where you can get yourself $150 in bonus bets if you place that first $5 bet by going to FanDuel.com. And if you're only into the NBA, do not worry. You can bet on hoops as well, including on the Sunday slate and the NBA Cup Championship trophy, which you can get to at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book. And see, in tonight's game, the Celtics are 16-point road favorites over the Washington Wizards. That's a pretty big line. Can they cover it? I bet that they will. Go to FanDuel.com to check it out. We're back on Locked On NBA Game Nights. I'm Rylan Stiles alongside me, Gavin Shaw. You can find him, Locked On Knicks, me, Locked On Thunder. Gavin, it's going to be Thunder. It's going to be Bucks. It's going to be NBA Cup Championship. You've been an NBA Cup hater, but does this tickle your fancy for Tuesday night?
Yeah, again, I don't like it for the Knicks because again, you just play harder team. Last year we had to play the Celtics and Bucks, so it didn't work out. I'm bitter. The games themselves are a lot of fun. I don't think anyone's, or you'd have to be an even greater hater than me to deny that. But I am super excited for this game. I think I just can't. Obviously, they played last season. I just have no recollection. I didn't watch it. I'm sure you watched it when they played. But I'm so excited to see Giannis and Dame go up against this Thunder defense. And this is a question that I'm sure you can answer for me, but who's guarding Giannis? I would guess Jalen Williams probably gets the matchup there because you're going to have Hartenstein, guarding Brook Lopez, who had a great game, his first great game in a while for Milwaukee. On the other end, who guards SGA? Like, Milwaukee has been exceptionally vulnerable against star guards since, of course, trading the best star guard defender in recent NBA history in Drew Holiday. And I think Jalen Williams on Giannis is probably a better answer than Andre Jackson Jr. on SGA is, but we'll see. OKC also has a lot of bodies to throw at Damian Lillard, right? I don't need to tell you, but Dort, Caruso, Cason Wallace, SGA. I like that. I'm interested to see. I think the one thing that could swing it in Milwaukee's favor is if Chris Middleton could get going. He was really not good in this game after going scoreless against Orlando. He arguably had a worse game this time out, 6 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 for 7 shooting. Basically, like, looked like he was tanking the game at the end, like over and over again, just throwing the ball away, missed an open three, had a dumb foul, missed a free throw, like dribbled it off his foot, lost another ball off his knee, couldn't get in out of bounds. They take a timeout and then he throws it away again. Like it was just a disastrous game for Chris Middleton. So if he can't get it together, they're in trouble, and they're going to need another vintage Brook Lopez game. 15 points in this one after not scoring in double digits for 5 straight games. He needs to have a huge game, pull Hartenstein away from the rim. That could swing things, but Oklahoma City, obviously the team that's playing better coming in.
Yeah, I imagine it will be J-Dub having to defend Giannis because that's what they've typically done, although Chet, of course, a much different center than Hartenstein is, which could swing a different favor, but they've still stuck with the idea of letting Hartenstein / Holmgren, whoever the active center is, get to roam a bit more whenever you're not facing a guy like Giannis or another intimidating forward where you have to give them all your attention. These two teams played, of course, twice last year, but it was in awkward parts of the calendar, including one game where the Bucks just bent the Thunder over a barrel and showed them the 50 states. I mean, they really, I mean, the Thunder just got hammered. Their worst loss of the year, which happened around, the All-Star break in February. So, like, it was a weird timing for that game. I still think that we don't know much about how these two iterations will go up against one another. I think if the Thunder can shoot the ball from 3 well, they're going to win the NBA Cup championship. If they don't, then that's where things can get hairy because you open yourself up to Dame is a killer against OKC. I mean, if he goes 5 for 8 from 3 and Giannis goes for 35 and you're not hitting your 3-point shots, and now it's all on Shai, all on J-Dub, who mainly get it done in the paint, and where you have Lopez and Bobby Portis Jr. there to cut you off. Giannis, of course, there as well inside. Like, this is going to be a real test I think, to Milwaukee's defense because of what you've mentioned of the scoring guards, the scoring lead guards have done fantastic against Milwaukee. Like, it's been the best day in the office for these guys. But while Shai's 3-point shot has came around, he's certainly more willing to take them. He clearly does the majority of his damage inside the arc and really inside the free throw line, where Milwaukee can still, for as bad as or shaky, I should say, as their defense has been, they're able to still pack that in and try to limit you inside the arc. So it'll be a testament between those two things. But I think the key will be the Thunder's 3-point shooting. I think if you see at the end of the night that they shot well from 3, you can pretty much assume that they've won the game. And we'll see if the Thunder can also force a ton of turnovers. That's been their key defensively because they can switch so well and create havoc. If they can turn you over and get out in the fast break, there's just no stopping them when they do those things because they themselves protect the ball very well. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a fun night, I think. I think that this is going to be a game that the NBA will like showcasing. Again, the crowd stuff worries you because there is zero footprint for the Thunder and Bucks in Vegas. And that's where the NBA Cup really thrived a year ago because it was just a very short drive, and many Laker fans live locally in Las Vegas, and a short drive for them if they didn't to pack that place and make it feel so massive. It'll be an emptier gym on Tuesday, but I still think it'll be a game that on television you really want to huddle around and see Dame and Giannis and J-Dub and Shai and even Hartenstein becoming a name here over the last couple of seasons, what he did for your Knicks in the playoffs, what he's doing right now for the Thunder. Yeah. But Gavin, it's time for another edition of Buy or Sell. My first topic can be a quick one. I just want to throw this out there. Buy or sell. The Rockets Thunder game tonight was everything that 2000s hoop heads were craving. You've seen it on Twitter all weekend. Oh my gosh, the old school style was so much better. Well, there you go. It's right there. Thunder Rockets. Watch it on the loop.
Yeah, I will say they got what they deserved and leave it at that.
They got what they were asking for. So we'll have to see the Nelson ratings tomorrow. And
It better be high, right?
Yeah,
That's
they
what
better be
want.
through the roof, man. I mean, this better be the most watched game of the season because they played the exact style that everyone says they should be playing. But a serious note on the buy or sell. Buy or sell, the Rockets are able to win 2 playoff series.
Sell. I don't need to go into it because I summed it up first segment. Unless I know Jackson was very dubious of the idea they'd go out and get Jimmy Butler. Totally understand it. You want to get someone more on the timeline. Maybe that guy isn't available yet. Maybe they're not Brandon Ingram believers. But until they find that go-to guy, like this is basically a picture perfect roster missing a true number one, and we'll see how and when they find that guy.
Yeah, I'm selling it as well. That's the hardest piece to fill. The Thunder got lucky that they filled it first and then they had to flesh out the rest. That's the hardest piece. That they have everything else. I think they have the coach in place. I think they have the front office in place.
Totally.
I think that they have the young core in place. They just don't have the guy in place yet. And you really just have to take what's out there. I know that you're looking for this dream scenario, this dream fit. Sometimes the dream fit never comes and you've kind of squandered something where you kind of need to jump on a guy who has shown you for whatever you think of his antics and his coffee and his hair colors and everything else that he does off the floor. On the floor, he's a riser, man. He carries teams. He's carried a Heat team that had no business to the finals and to the Eastern Conference Finals multiple times. He certainly could carry this Houston Rockets team. I mean, you can say he's too old, he's over the hill, whatever. If you're just looking at a finite window here of like we get Jimmy Butler for a couple seasons, boom, here you have this young core in front of you. I really would be fearful of the Rockets at that point. And he kind of sticks in tone with that physicality and defensive identity of Houston. I'm more on board for the idea than Jackson is, but Jackson's the local expert and he kind of knows more. I think that, again, it could be fighting the same fights that we were fighting in Oklahoma City whenever people would talk about this from outside the market. But buy or sell, the Hawks are going to finish inside the top 5 of the Eastern Conference. That this run here over the last few weeks, including the NBA Cup, is going to catapult them to where they're securely into the playoffs, not the play-in.
I am going to. That is 5 is exactly the right number because I would say Cavs, Celtics, Knicks, Bucks, I think are ahead of them, and the Magic would be if not for their injuries. I'm going to sell it. I think the Magic get healthy enough early enough, and the Hawks finish 6th. And the Heat are obviously in that conversation as well. The Pacers could still get a rhythm going. I think the Hawks are a really good regular season team. I just am a little bit more confident in those other teams. Do you think they could get into the top 5?
So I'm glad that you appreciate the line. That's exactly why I did 5 because I feel good. I feel no brainer about 6. I feel like they're going to be a team that will get there. But with 5, I'm looking at the Magic, and on one hand, I'm saying, man, no Franz, no Paolo, the injuries piling up. And I think that they're going to bottom out, not bottom out, but drop out of the top 5 securely where they otherwise would have been really cemented there. Mm-hmm. But by the same breath, the Orlando Magic, they just play so hard. I mean, look what they did to Milwaukee this week on Wednesday night in the NBA Cup. Like they should have won the game. And it's guys that you look at like Jalen Suggs who going into that game, you probably thought had no chance to carry the offense. How are the Magic even going to go score? And yet they're able to take Milwaukee down to the wire. And we know how the NBA schedule works. Like, yes, they're going to eventually stumble on a tough stretch. They're also going to have a stretch of like Washington, Charlotte. And like, they're going to be able to manage that whether Paolo and Franz are there or not. So I think 5 is the hard number. I'm going to buy it just because I think that the Magic will stumble record-wise and be one of those teams that like, oh, they're 6th or they're 7th, but nobody wants to play them because it's artificial. They're not really the 6th or 7th best Eastern Conference team. They're truly like a top 5, borderline 4 team that just had bad injury luck.
Yeah, and I think my bet is that Paolo comes back in the next 3 weeks. And we saw with Franz, they had an 11-1 stretch in 12 games. Like I think with one of those guys, they can win big. But they need one.
So we'll be tracking that all season long now. But buy or sell, Milwaukee has stabilized.
I buy it. I'm surprised because I was singing their last rites and they look really good. AJ Green's emergence I mentioned the other week has been huge. Like Him and Taurean Prince, both top 5 in the NBA in 3-point percentage right now. It feels like Damian Lillard is finally comfortable. Like, you go listen to the people over at Locked On Bucks, they're really convinced of that like, even if like he's going to have nights like tonight where he doesn't shoot the ball as well as you want, like, his distribution has been consistent. They've been dominant in games where he's had double-digit assists. I don't think they've lost all year in games they've had dominant where he's had double-digit assists. That's a tongue twister. Giannis is just so good, provides a baseline. Middleton, even when he's not shooting well, like, is also like, I think he's the epitome of a stabilizer for them, just orchestrating the offense. Another guy who's comfortable having the ball in his hands. Another guy who will make open shots, who can hold his own defensively. Again, not a great night for him. And you get more nights like this from Brolo. Like, I think they are on a trajectory to be a good, if not truly elite regular season and playoff team.
I buy it as well. I think that they've got it figured out. They found their footing, and now it just comes down to the playoffs where stars win. And if you get great Dame and you get great Giannis, you're going to be a force. And if not, well, you're going to be going home. But the last buy or sell, Gavin, when you close your eyes and you envision what this team already is, and you envision Chet Holmgren coming back into the fold, when you put that together, the Thunder are the best team in the NBA.
No, it's the Boston Celtics. They have a flawless starting lineup and do not have that. The one thing Oklahoma City's missing, I think, is a fifth guy to close with who is just a bona fide scorer. And the Celtics set the standard so high, and I don't think are appreciated for this, that they, like, by net rating, were a top 5 team in NBA history last year. And I think fully healthy are somewhere in that mix, top 10 team historically. Like, I think they are an outlier. Oklahoma City's defense is incredible. Boston is just a little bigger on the wings. More guys who are comfortable with the ball in their hands, more guys who are comfortable finishing. Maybe Oklahoma City proves me wrong. I don't think they have the high-end talent that Boston has.
Yeah, I'm also selling this. I think it's tantalizing. I think it's possible. The reason I'm selling it is Boston has way less variables. Like, what if Chet comes back in name only? What if he comes back and it takes them the rest of the year to shake the rest off, and they really just have to kind of go forward next season with this fully healthy duo? What if there's not enough time for him to work the kinks out playing alongside a true big for the first time in his NBA career? What if, there's just so many, what if he never comes back? Like, what if he's not back this season as the Thunder expect him to be? Now, I think he will be as well as the team does, but we don't know. I mean, we don't know that for a fact until the day comes. So there's just too many variables for the Thunder to dethrone Boston, who it just feels like they can roll out of bed and beat you by 20 and waltz their way to the finals. Despite, I really love this Cavs team. I really still like the Knicks as contenders. Despite liking a lot of East teams, I just think that it's Boston's conference to lose. Whereas the Thunder, on top of those variables going head to head with Boston, man, I don't know who you would pick in a playoff series, like a full 7-game series against the Dallas Mavericks. I know that they got the big win Tuesday, but I still think that the Mavericks are a thorn in their side. So there's a lot more work to do for Oklahoma City to take that crown. But I think that they're the second best, Gavin. And, that's something to hang your hat on. And maybe, just maybe, on Tuesday night, they'll get to hang their hat on the second ever in-season tournament championship, first ever NBA Cup banner. Could possibly be raised in the Paycom Center, making history. Gavin, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for listening. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.